Once upon a time, Spain ruled the world. In the 16th century, the sun didn't set on the British Empire. It didn't even exist yet. It was Spain's flag flying over the largest empire the planet had ever seen. From the castles of Europe to the coasts of Africa, from the silver mountains of the Americas to the islands of Asia, one crown commanded it all. They said, the sun never sets on the Spanish Empire. And they were right. But there's a twist. The richest empire in history collapsed under the weight of its own treasure. When Spain landed in the New World after 1492, it struck what looked like an infinite jackpot. Gold and silver poured in faster than anyone had ever seen. The Aztec Empire fell in 1521, and with it came the rich mines of Zacatecas. A decade later, the conquest of Peru unlocked Potosí, a mountain so full of silver that it earned a terrifying name, the mountain that eats men. For over a century, treasure fleets crossed the Atlantic carrying unimaginable riches back to Spain. Between 1500 and 1650, the empire imported roughly 180,000 tons of silver and 2,000 tons of gold. More silver than all of Europe had mined in the previous 1,000 years combined. This flow of precious metal didn't just reshape Europe, it reshaped the world. From Seville and Cadiz, ships carried bullion east, to the Mediterranean, north to the Low Countries, and west across the Pacific to Manila, where it was traded for Chinese silk and porcelain. It was the dawn of a truly global economy. And Spain was sitting at its center. But while Spain was ruling half the world, its rivals were barely getting started. When the English founded Jamestown in 1607, a swampy, half-starved settlement clinging to survival, Mexico City already had universities, printing presses, and cathedrals. Lima was thriving. And St. Augustine in Florida, founded by Spain in 1565, was the first permanent European settlement in what's now the United States, decades before Jamestown. Spain wasn't just ahead of everyone else. It was building global infrastructure while others were still learning how to colonize. But here's the problem. Spain mistook treasure for wealth. The silver was real. But what they did with it turned strength into weakness. Prices exploded. Between 1500 and 1600, inflation ran wild. Prices quadrupled in just 1 century. Ordinary Spaniards, who should have been living in prosperity, found themselves struggling to afford even bread or clothes. Economists later called it the price revolution, the first great wave of global inflation. Too much silver chasing too few goods. And just like in any modern bubble, the rich got richer first. Nobles, merchants, and bankers handled the silver before prices adjusted. They made fortunes. But ordinary people paid in fixed wages fell behind. The cruel irony. The more silver Spain brought in, the poorer its people felt. Instead of investing in productivity, factories, trade, innovation, Spain spent its fortune on luxuries and imports. Italian merchants, Dutch traders, and German craftsmen grew rich selling goods to Spain. Why build when you can just buy? Why work when the treasure fleet arrives every year? Spain became a consumer empire, not a producer. And then came the wars. The Spanish monarchs saw themselves as defenders of Catholicism after the Protestant Reformation, a divine mission with an astronomical price tag. American silver bankrolled wars against the Ottoman Turks, rebellions in the Netherlands, and campaigns across France and Italy. The Spanish Armada, that massive fleet sent to crush Protestant England in 1588, was funded by New World silver. And when it failed, it wasn't just a naval disaster. It was a financial earthquake. But the real killer wasn't war. It was debt. Spain wasn't just spending what it had. It was borrowing against treasure that hadn't even reached its shores yet. German and Genoese bankers loaned huge sums to the crown, secured by future silver shipments. In theory, it was brilliant. As long as the fleets kept coming, the system worked. But when storms hit, when pirates attacked, or when ships sank, everything fell apart. Spain defaulted. Again and again. 1,557. 1,575. 1,596. 1,607. 4 state bankruptcies in just 50 years. Imagine being the richest empire in the world, sitting on half the world's gold, and still declaring bankruptcy every few decades. And then came the pirates. They weren't just thieves, they were weapons of economic warfare. England and the Netherlands knew that Spain's lifeline was its treasure fleets, colossal convoys carrying the empire's paychecks across the Atlantic. Sink one, and you didn't just steal gold, you crashed Spain's credit system. In 1628, Dutch privateer Piet Hein captured an entire Spanish treasure fleet off Cuba, worth over 11 million guilders in silver. That single event nearly broke the Spanish crown. Francis Drake, John Hawkins, and other English privateers, backed by Queen Elizabeth herself, circled the globe, raiding galleons and returning home national heroes. Each captured ship wasn't just loot, it was stolen economic power, soon reinvested into English banks, navies, and trading companies. Spain's treasure had become its Achilles heel. Other nations watched and learned. They saw that silver alone didn't build an empire, systems did. Spain's colonies existed to funnel wealth home. Britain's colonies were built to produce wealth. North America didn't have gold or silver like Mexico or Peru, but it had land and for tobacco, sugar, timber, cotton, all resources that fueled industry and trade. While Spain waited for ships full of treasure, the British built chartered companies like the East India Company, banks in London, and systems of trade that should grow forever. That's the difference. Spain measured wealth in silver. Britain and the Dutch measured it in systems. One runs out, the other compounds. By the 1600s, Spain still looked mighty on a map. Vast territories, glorious cathedrals, palaces glittering with gold. But inside the empire was hollow. Inflation had eroded prosperity. Debt had chained the crown to foreign bankers. Pirates and privateers turned its wealth into weakness. And ordinary Spaniards, the ones who should have shared in the riches, were left with nothing but higher prices and heavier taxes. The richest empire on earth was eating itself alive. As Spain stumbled, its rivals thrived. The Dutch built the world's first stock exchange in Amsterdam. The English created a banking system that fueled trade and naval power. They didn't wait for wealth to arrive, they built systems that created it. By the 1700s, Spain was still big, but it was no longer powerful. Its fleets were smaller, its economy was weak, and the same silver that once made it rich had turned into the poison that hollowed it out. And that's the real lesson. Treasure isn't wealth. Silver isn't security. Wealth comes from systems, from production, from innovation, from stability that lasts. Spain thought owning half the world meant power forever, but in truth it meant fragility. It bet everything on bullion, and lost. History doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. Every society that floods itself with easy money, whether through mines, credit, or printing presses, walks the same path. It feels rich for a while, then it breaks. Spain's story is a warning that echoes through the centuries. The question isn't whether history will repeat, it's whether we'll recognize the signs before it does. If this gave you a new way to see history, hit subscribe. Because the past isn't gone, it's just waiting to be understood.